Hi, welcome back to Life is a Treasure podcast. I'm your hostess, Michelle Durand, and this is episode number 32. Today, I'm joined with a guest, Nikki Johnson, and Nikki is an infertility survivor and a wellness coach. She helps women and men live a full life with simple fitness, nutrition, and wellness tools. Nikki went through 5 years of infertility, and she is sharing her struggles, her years of tears, and the full circle story of how it ended up. And I just know that this episode is going to touch your heart as she shares very real, raw, vulnerable moments. And I know that if any of you listening have been through infertility, you can definitely relate to that. And our hope through this episode is that you will be inspired, you will be encouraged, and that you will find hope and healing if that's what you are struggling with. So if you or anyone you know has been through or is going through infertility, please share this episode with them. We hope that you will be inspired, and we'd love to hear your feedback. So get comfortable and let's get started. Hi, Nikki. Welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much. So Nikki Johnson is my guest, and Nikki and I, this is our first time meeting, and we met through Instagram. So yeah, Nikki liked some of my photos, and she started following me, and I started following her recently. And the thing that caught my eye, Nikki, was that you had in there that you were an infertility survivor, and that's what caught my attention. And I really thought, oh, I'd love to chat with her. And so now I'm honored to have you here, and I'm so honored to have you share your story with our audience. So I just would like, if you would like to start, just share a little bit about yourself so we kind of get to know you before we get into your story.
Well, thanks for having me, Michelle, and it's been great to meet you. And I just love Instagram being a way to connect with people who have similar interests or similar stories from all across the world. And so I'm just really grateful to be here and to have connected with you. So yeah, my name is Nikki Johnson. I live in Nebraska. I'm a Midwest girl and grew up in Nebraska. I grew up on a little farm. And I guess to start with my infertility story, I always wanted to be a mom. You think about when you are growing up that someone will say, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I always remember saying, "I want to be a mom." Mm-hmm. I remember one time I was in third grade and we had to draw a picture of the career that we wanted, like what we wanted to be when we grew up, draw a picture of the person. And I told my teacher, I want to be a mom. And she said, "Oh, honey, that's great. But what else do you want to be?" And instantly my heart was broken because that's what I wanted to be when I grew up. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom. So that was just all I had ever wanted to be. So to finish the story, I ended up drawing a picture of a model because that's the only thing I could think of that would, I guess, kind of go with being a mom, just a regular person. That's what I wanted to be. So as my life went on, I ended up meeting my husband pretty early in life, I guess. We were juniors and seniors. And then we got married. I was just right out of high school, a year or so. So he was 20 and I was 19. And I just knew, like I said, that I'd always wanted to be a mom. Thankfully, he didn't want kids right away because we were so young. We were babies. So the first couple of years of our marriage, probably a good 3 or 4 years, we weren't even thinking about kids. And then I was really, pretty young, 24 or so, when we decided to start a family. And I remember going to the doctor, I don't know, maybe about 6 months after trying, and just being frustrated. And my doctor said, "Oh, you're so young, don't worry about it." And I just wanted to shake him and say, but this is all I ever wanted. It's not happening. So, they did, he suggested the whole take your temperature in the morning. If you've gone through infertility, or at least that's the way it was 13, 14 years ago, you just start with taking your temperature every morning. And when your internal body temperature is a little bit warmer, that's supposed to be when you're ovulating. So that didn't work for us, but we tried probably a solid year before we did any kind of infertility specialists. So from there, again, I live in a small town in Nebraska, so we had to drive about 45 minutes to see a specialist. And we were with our first specialist for about 8 months, just doing, I feel like, kind of just checking the boxes of, at that time, again, so much has changed in 14, 13 years that I'm not sure what things are like now, but started with Clomid and, checking all the stats. And we did do, I don't know, maybe 8 months of artificial insemination. And I want to say it was probably a good year with that first doctor, just not getting anywhere, and just didn't feel like he was really giving us his best as a doctor. So at that time, we switched to a different doctor in that same town. So still, again, a 45-minute drive for me. And things really changed with that second doctor, and just really could just really tell that she actually cared about us. And I probably should have kept a journal of all of this, because as the years go by, it's harder to remember exactly the timeline of everything. But I want to say we were with that doctor maybe about 6 months. And we, again, kind of went through the same process. But again, just that the second doctor just had a different approach. And I don't know if it was because she was a female versus our first doctor being a male, but she just really seemed to care about us more. And I just felt more comfortable with her. So I'm not sure why exactly, if it was, being a male and a female, and to add to it, our first doctor just was older, just didn't seem as professional. And anyway, so luckily we had a better experience our second time through. And then we went through our first IVF procedure. And our first attempt failed. And of course, heartbroken. And during this time, two of my very, very good friends both got pregnant.
Wow.
And one of them was a high school friend. And I can remember, I got to take a drink of water real quick.
Yeah.
I can remember going to the hospital.
I know
I'm sorry.
it's okay. I'm sure so many people who are listening know what you're feeling right now. And that's why I just want to thank you for sharing this. I know it's not easy to relive it, and it's so brave of you to share something like this, but you know that so many people are feeling what you felt then.
Exactly, for sure. And that's really what motivates me, drives me to continue to share and talk about it. But it was just really hard to go to the hospital and be that good, excited friend for her. Because also at the time we chose, and like I said, like it has been almost 14 years ago. But I feel like things were really different then. It wasn't something that we really talked a lot about.
Right.
And so my husband and I chose to really not talk about it a lot. We didn't tell a lot of our family, and probably only one good friend that I really talked to about it. And it was just really hard to have her, to be excited for her, because I wanted to, but I still had all this pain.
Yeah.
And so thankfully, though, our second transfer of IVF, we were able to get pregnant. And so after, I want to say 5 years of going through infertility, we were finally able to get pregnant and had a baby girl. And she's such a blessing and just perfect in every way. And I can still say that 13 years later.
Oh, that
we'll see after the teenage years, but
but I bet you say it was 5 years, but in reality, how long did it feel?
Now, like I said, 14 years later, it seems like a lifetime ago. Yeah. And it's definitely not something that I ever wish anyone go through. But I'm definitely a silver lining type of girl, find the positive. And it definitely strengthened my marriage. I know that's not the case for all situations, but it really forced us to, especially just not talking to other people about our situation, it really forced us to be stronger together, communicate more, open up to each other more. And so if there was any good from it, other than getting my daughter finally, it was that it really strengthened our marriage. And yeah, it did seem like a lifetime, and it was definitely the hardest and darkest time in my life. But it's out of my control. So all I can do is find the good in this situation.
Was that easy to do when you were going through that process?
Absolutely not.
No.
No, my husband being a teacher, and at the time he was teaching in high school, I would see unwanted teen pregnancies. And I saw all of my friends, that point in my life, friends were getting married and having babies. And, all focusing on those things would, just obviously make it a lot harder. But again, just having my husband, who is my rock, help me through it and really help each other. When you're forced to be strong for somebody else, it forces you to be strong for you. So that really helped also.
I have met a few other women who have experienced infertility and who could never have children, I shouldn't say never, but like at that time, they really had been going through years of infertility and tears and pain. And one thing that I know hurt them so much is, as you said about teen pregnancies, they would say, and because the work I do is with women who choose abortion, or chose abortion, they would say to me, you know how much it hurts me because gosh, all these girls who don't want their baby, and I am praying every day nonstop for a baby, and they just don't even want their baby. And so, yeah, it's just so many people are impacted by so many different ways with so many different things that pertain to pregnancy, unplanned pregnancies, not being able to get pregnant. And, it all has pain. It all has suffering. And as you said, back then and many years ago, only until recently, and especially I feel like because of the internet, we're able to share more. And, when I first started sharing publicly about my abortion, that was in the year of 2000. And back then there was no internet. I remember when I first wanted to start speaking out and sharing, I was like, but how am I going to tell people, go stand at Walmart and, I had no idea back then that 20 years later, we'd be sitting here and we can speak to the whole world and share our stories for anyone in the world to listen to. And one thing that I really heard you talk about is that, finding that silver lining and focusing on the positive. And I just want to share that, or ask you. So you then, so you went through your infertility, and then you were able to
Mhm.
get pregnant, and you had your
Mhm.
little girl. And
Mhm.
at that point, what were you doing? Like, so were you a
Mhm.
stay-at-home mom, like you always
Mhm.
dreamed of doing?
Yeah. So I wanted to be a mom my whole life.
Okay.
And since that didn't happen on my timeline of,
Yeah.
um, I actually opened up a daycare.
Okay.
So that was about 5 years before I had my daughter. And
Okay.
actually about a year or two before that, actually probably just about a year, I was babysitting for a family, essentially as a nanny in their home for a year. And I had also worked at a daycare while going through college. So that 5 year, I guess, just kind of an added piece. That 5 year infertility journey, I was also surrounded by kids every day,
Yeah.
and newborn babies, which it kind of went both ways. It was nice to have those kids, but then also hurt at times.
Yes.
Um, and when I talk about my friend and other unwanted, it was never like that I was mad at them, or you know that's their life and that's their story. It wasn't necessarily that I was mad at them. It was just knowing that other people had something that I so badly wanted and couldn't have, at
Yeah.
least yet. It just hurt. And
Yes.
so it's not something that I wasn't ever mad at my friend. It was just a struggle to, be that super excited, to process all of the emotions that I had,
Right.
and to put on that smile, even though it was genuine.
Yeah.
I genuinely was,
Yeah.
just dealing with all of that. So, yeah, I had, um, like I said, that 5 years of daycare before she was born. And then I actually continued on with my daycare for the first 5 years of her life, because I wanted to stay home with her, be that stay at home mom. And then that daycare life is hard, as a
Yeah.
daycare provider, an in home provider, having 8 kids, well, actually
Yeah.
7, come into my life every day for 10 hours a day. And you become a little family, and I loved it,
Hmm.
but it just really wears on you to constantly be that, the source
Yeah.
of life for
Yeah.
7 other people. It's draining emotionally, physically, mentally. It's just exhausting. And at that time, as happy as I was in my marriage and to have this baby, I still found myself just not in a good place, because I didn't have anything for me. I think especially as moms, there's that mom guilt of like, I can't, I have to be 100% giving to my kids all the time. And, we feel guilty about taking time for ourselves, whether that's taking a shower alone,
Yeah.
the bathroom, or going
Yeah.
out with your girls at night, or getting your hair done. Like any time away from family can be, for some moms, really hard for us to do
Hmm.
without mom guilt. Um, and especially for me at that time, just living in my daycare world, sort of, my friends, especially before I had my friend would just kind of laugh about how I would just like show off my daycare kids like they were my own kids,
Yeah.
because it really, really consumed me, which was fine, but also that I didn't have anything for me. So I remember one time, it's been, gosh, um, probably about 10 years ago, that my husband said, "You need a hobby." And I wanted to punch him, because I was like, "Are you kidding me? How on earth am I ever going to find time for a hobby? I have these daycare kids 50 hours a week. I have you, like the family, to take care of." Like, I honestly just laughed at him and got so angry at him. But what he really meant by that, he's a sweetheart. He just really meant, you need to take some time for yourself. You need to do something
Yeah.
for you. You need to do something for you. And oddly enough, it was exercise. My daycare kids would go to sleep during nap time, or hopefully go to sleep at nap time, and I had that sweet spot, like maybe an hour to myself. And eventually that became the time that I would try to work out.
Okay.
So I would pop in a DVD and do a little workout while they were sleeping. And it just at the time didn't make sense to me, because growing up I was like non-athletic. I called myself like a band nerd. Like I was more into plays and musical and, band, right? I just wasn't athletic. So for me to start working out at home, it just seemed really crazy because now, I've basically fallen in love with it, and it just didn't seem like something I would do. But that was basically the way that I took time for me, like to self-care, I guess. And that I just didn't know I needed and understood that I needed until my husband kind of told me I needed a hobby. So fitness, I guess, became a hobby, but then turned into just such a passion that I've then turned into a career. So I closed my daycare about 7 years ago. And now I'm just working at home still, but just helping people online and just connecting them with fitness and nutrition plans based on their goals, and then helping them through staying on track.
Wow.
That's what I do now.
What a beautiful journey. That is so neat and so cool how I love to see how your life just unfolds when, like you said, you would have never imagined, if someone had said you would be doing what you're doing now, you'd been like, no, are you crazy?
Right.
And so
I think so much has changed over the years, like now that everything's online, that we're connecting on Instagram. Again, we'd never met before today. And the fact that, we just change so much. Life just evolves and we change and grow. And it's a beautiful thing.
It sure is. Before I want to go down, I have some other questions, but before I go there, I just want to ask you something because if someone's listening right now and they're struggling, they might be where you were, at that time of pain, and maybe they don't have any hope. I know a journey like that, you have high hopes and then you're brought so low, and it's like a roller coaster. And so if someone's listening and they're struggling and they have almost given up hope, they just can't even see the silver lining, and they may think, I could never, be where she is. What would you say to them? Because I'm sure you might have felt that way at one point. So now that you've come all the way full circle, what would you say to that woman that's really where you were in the middle of her pain?
For sure. And before I share that, I too want to share something because, like you said, it's such a roller coaster and highs and lows. One other thing a memory that really sticks out is a family member asking me. I remember it was at Christmas time, and she just said, "So when are you guys going to have kids?"
Oh yeah,
I hear
that a lot.
And because we weren't sharing with anyone, she had no idea, and maybe and again, that was 15 years ago, so maybe people aren't necessarily thinking in the same way, but that was just so painful. So I would say too, my best advice just for people in general is to, think about those things. Maybe there's a reason why. And even not necessarily that specific question. I mean, specifically that question, but other questions that you may be tempted to ask people, to just really be thinking about their situation before you ask that.
Thank you so much.
It was such a roller coaster in highs and lows. And I think I've always it's just in my nature to be a positive person. So obviously, find the silver lining, find the good, never lose hope, because hope is a lot stronger than fear. So if you sit in that, this isn't going to happen, all those, just sitting in the negativity, it just breeds more negativity. What you focus on grows. So focusing on the positive, staying positive and staying hopeful really has, I think, a much bigger impact than you think. And then not even hopeful and positive, but more also just calm in your body and relaxed and trusting, because I think that really played a big part in our first IVF not being successful, because I was so tense, so nervous. I didn't know what I was going to experience. I didn't know what it was going to be like. And I just know that I was very tense. And after having that first experience and knowing what it was going to be like, I felt much more relaxed and calm going into the second transfer. And I think that had a lot to do with it. So I think staying positive, relaxed, calm, and I know from experience hearing those things, someone would just be could be brushing that off or thinking, oh yeah, me, like how am I going to do that? I get it. I get that it's not easy.
Yeah.
No part of the journey is easy, but also you can kind of just will yourself and talk yourself into it. You know, the whole like fake it till you make it phrase, not necessarily fake it, but just remind yourself to stay positive, stay calm, and just that mental talk. You know, you can talk yourself up to being positive and relaxed. And so I think that's really my best advice. And, you know, just respect that other people's journeys are different and honor them and respect them. And don't have, as hard as it is, speaking from experience, that your timeline is irrelevant and you have to just let go and let things be and trust and believe that everything will happen as it should.
Oh, that's great advice. And thank you so much for that reminder. It's true. We don't realize that it could come across as insensitive when we don't really know, but we don't know because people, maybe it's not that they don't want to tell or share, it's because it's too painful to share and tell and talk about.
Yeah.
And so thank you for that reminder and thank you so much for that amazing advice. And one thing that you have said over and over throughout this podcast so far is the word positive. And so I just have to say that it makes sense to me that you would name your podcast Power of Positive. So since we're heading in that direction, I would love for you to share that journey of like what inspired you to start a podcast.
Yeah. So really Instagram, just connecting with other women, and seeing that podcast is just kind of the, I wouldn't say new, it's newer, powerful way to connect with people and to share your story and your message and be a light. It was something where I'd been thinking about for a long time. And I had wanted to do, but just really scared to do it, like just fearful of like, I don't know what I'm doing. Do I have a good idea? Will this work? Will people want to listen? All of those things. And I just decided one day I was just going to share it on my Instagram stories. And I knew that if I put it out there, then I was going to have to take action on it. So I felt the fear and I did it anyway. I put it out there and then it was like, Nikki, you're going to have to do this now. So I did it. And then I actually ended up launching my podcast a couple of weeks early because of COVID. I just felt like people need some positivity. You know, if people just need, I mean, we all do, not that I'm preaching, but we all need more positivity in our lives. And I just felt like this is a way that I can help people, you know, just put some positivity in their ears. So my first couple episodes have been just kind of how we can respond to COVID, how we can find the positivity in the situation, and find a positive way through life. I mean, I talk specifically about the situation right now just because it's so super relevant, but I think what I share is really relevant to any point in your life, just finding the positive and focusing on it, and just some experiences that I've had, strategies that I use to help us all live a positive life. It's a choice.
Yeah. Congratulations on the launch of your podcast. I know firsthand as well. I mean, it took me totally 3 years to launch my podcast just because, you know, I had to learn it, get the equipment, and then that was the easy part. The hardest part was the mindset, right? It's like you said, I felt all those feelings as well. And so I just want to, you know, congratulate you again. And one thing that your podcast episodes are so good. And I was listening to them. And one thing that I really, really loved was, and I'd like for you to share this, and I'll have the links to your podcast in the show notes so they can go find it. But while we're here live, I want to ask you to touch on something that is so powerful and so much needed, as you said, in all phases of life. But you mentioned about emotions or reactions, and feelings or interpretation and a choice. So I'd love for you to just share your insight with the people listening, because, let's talk about infertility again. So, you have emotions when you're going through infertility, and you have feelings. And so can you just kind of give us an example of that and share in your own words about this information? It's so good.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like, and I read this in a book somewhere, and I don't remember, I'm terrible about remembering which book.
Yeah.
Because I'm constantly reading, but it talks a lot about like feelings and emotions and the difference between two. And to be very honest, I get the two confused on the exact definitions of each. But basically one is, that emotion that happens. So, you react to a thing, to whatever, like, for example, this podcast, how maybe I felt a little bit, butterflies in my stomach, a little sweaty, right? Like that was the emotions that was happening in my body. And I can label those as feeling nervous or scared or stressed, or those same reactions in my body also come when I'm really excited about something. So I can choose to label that as being excited. Yeah. And I talk to my daughter all the time about this, because I think the sooner we can train our body to acknowledge what's happening, but then choose how we want to feel with those emotions, I just think that's really powerful. I think that's probably one of the most powerful ways that we can determine how we feel, is by acknowledging whatever, a reaction to a thing, and then choosing how we want to feel in response to it.
Oh, wow. I know. And you know what I was thinking when you were saying that? Because I know both of our podcasts are about mind, body, spirit, mind, body, soul, and the connection. And I talk a lot about that also all the time. But as you were saying that, because I know I get that mixed up too. It's almost like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? What comes first, the emotion or the feeling? How can you control? Right. And so I see it as our emotions or our body's way of talking to us. And then our feeling has more, it sounds like, is more of the mindset, because you have a choice of how you want to interpret it, as you say, and decide, like, oh, I'm going to feel, this way. This or the story we tell us, right? Like,
oh, for sure.
I feel embarrassed, so that means my emotion is I'm feeling, I see how it's also, it does get tricky, right? It's like, feel embarrassed and like, oh, I'm such a loser, but, or, no, I'm not, I'm human, so is that, sure. Yeah. And I think it's
what we want to tell ourselves. And then also catching ourselves if we are in that, like, if you catch yourself saying I'm a loser, or I'm no good, or I'm not enough, like, acknowledge that, but then choose different. And the way you can choose different is what you focus on. You can focus on all the things that make you feel that way, make you feel not enough, or not strong enough, good enough, smart enough, whatever. But just as much energy as you give to those things, you can choose to focus on what are the things that make you feel awesome and strong and proud. And like I said, it takes the same amount of energy to focus on either one. It's just a matter of choice of what you want to focus on. Yeah. How you want to feel.
Yeah, let's bring it to today, what we're living in now, So if you listen to the news and you see what's going on, you can feel so much fear and scared and, like insecure, lack, like, oh my gosh, it feels like the world is just ending and falling apart. So, but we can help people realize that and I think the word that keeps coming up to me is mindfulness, being present in the moment, accepting where we are, and then choosing to look at it and say, okay, but also our minds lie to us and trick us, and so it's like, is this really true? Is this the truth? If we feel like, is the world ending? The truth is no, the world is not ending, as far as, that's not what this means, it could end, but we can't, that's not going to do any good worrying about it, right? That doesn't change what we're living in. We have a choice of how we want to respond. Okay, that's a good thing too, like reaction versus responding.
Oh, yes, I agree. I agree completely
Yeah.
because reaction is just your quick response to something, your quick thing. But
Yeah.
how you respond to something, giving it some time and like, really, how do I want to react to this?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I love that kind of stuff. I love getting in that, and I know you do too. And so I just really love your podcast, Power of Positive. I love the name. I love what it's all about, mindset, confidence, self love. And so let me ask you something. Did you love yourself through your infertility journey?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I don't think until probably in the last, I don't know, 5 to 8 years have I really understood what self-love is, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And I think that's sort of like just how we are evolving as, a society and coming into learning what self-love is and that we need self-love and all that. But so no, I guess in short, no, I don't think I really did. And I think even just beyond just general self-love of just thinking that there was a lot wrong with me, because I couldn't be a mom, which is, my purpose, what I thought of at that time, my purpose, I couldn't fulfill that purpose. That, yeah, no, there was not any really self-love there. But yeah, like I said, just most recently, just something that I've learned more about and continue to grow because it's definitely not a light switch. It's definitely
No.
not something there all of a sudden everything's magically full of self-love, but it's a daily practice, it
Yeah.
takes intention. And that's part of my morning routine is filling myself with self-love, with daily affirmations and gratitude and such.
So do you find that helps you to have a daily practice, a routine in the mornings?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. That's actually what my
Mhm.
podcast I'm recording today is about because
Oh,
it's something I get a lot of questions
uh-huh.
about and just something that I found really, really powerful. I'm not a morning person, but it's something that I've really found to be so powerful that if I wake up a little bit earlier than I have planned, before the rest of my house wakes up is really great because then I have that quiet time to myself. But just starting my day with some daily affirmations that I've written specifically for how I want to live my life, not necessarily the person I want to become or be, but how I want to live my life, the person I want to live as, So the values that I have, the things that I want to focus on, how I want to carry myself, how I want to communicate with people and interact with people. But then also just some simple ones that I mean, every day in my journal, I write, I am enough
Oh,
because I feel like that's something we need to tell ourselves daily because a lot happens in a day and we process a lot of emotions in a day and we
yeah,
have a lot of feelings in a day. And especially as women, um, and I am constantly struggling with I am enough. So that's something I write down. And then just 5 things that I'm grateful for
okay.
because gratitude, the practice of gratitude just does so much, for yourself, helps you realize the blessings you have. And then also just knowing that I'm going to write down 5 pieces of gratitude helps me look for them throughout the day. And so when you are looking for gratitude, that's what you're going to attract more in your life, more good things in your life. So those things have been really powerful for me to just feel better, to stay more positive, to fight off depression, and to just, yeah, live a positive life.
So I think about how some people, and I know I've been in times in my life where it's hard to even find one thing that I feel grateful for because it feels like everything around me is hard and terrible. And, so I just want to give a reminder, and I'm sure you agree with this. It's like, even in those times, I want to say that, some people might feel like I have nothing to be grateful for, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like start small. There's times where I
Yeah.
have to say, I'm grateful that I can breathe. I'm thankful that the sun's
Mm-hmm.
out. I'm thankful for the
Mm-hmm.
grass and the flowers. Like,
Yes.
even start there, right? It's like
Yes.
that is a
Yes.
journey. Maybe, you don't just jump from, oh, I've never done this practice before to like, oh, I'm so grateful that, I healed from something, or, they think that I have to have this big thing, and it doesn't. I believe it
Right.
starts with that small, just whatever smallest little thing that it's hard sometimes for people to generate that positive,
Mhm.
right? They focus on that
It is.
negative. Yeah. Because
Yeah, it really is. Especially if it's not something you're used to. I
yeah.
feel like I have just always been the type of person, like I'm a people pleaser. I don't
Mm.
like conflict. Like I want to make
Yes.
things better for you,
Yeah.
right? Like what can I do to help you feel better? Like if you share a problem with me, I hurt for you, but then I want to help you. So it's just in my nature to find positive. So even that said, I still struggle with
Mm-hmm.
finding gratitude, and I do oftentimes just write that I'm thankful for the sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
And that may be seen as something so trivial, but honestly, like really, sometimes the simplest things we don't give enough gratitude, and we need to
Right.
honor those things. We can
Yes.
take for granted that really sweet text that somebody sent you, or the conversation with your grandma on the phone, like if
Yeah.
we don't pause and take a moment to honor them and celebrate them, we're not really giving them all the gratitude that they deserve. So if you're not familiar with that practice, give yourself some grace. If you tell yourself you have nothing to be grateful for, that's your reality. That's your truth.
Yes.
What you tell yourself becomes your reality. So if you say the world sucks, I'm awful, I have nothing to be thankful for, grateful for, that's true. That's your
Yeah.
truth. You've just decided your truth. But if you force yourself to start small and say, I'm thankful I'm alive. I'm
Mm-hmm.
thankful I can breathe. I'm thankful for the sun, for the grass,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, right? Then you start to build up that positivity in you. And then you're going to start seeing more things. It's almost like your eyes are just then open to other things
Mm-hmm.
that you didn't see. Then you're like, oh, wow, look, there's a bird. Like, how silly could that be, really? But
Yes.
yeah, like, oh, I'm so grateful that I could take this moment to pause and look out my window.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, it's just a matter of being open to trying it, giving yourself some grace that it's going to take a while to figure out. And then I really, really believe whatever you tell yourself is your
Mm-hmm.
reality. So you tell yourself that you don't have anything to be grateful for, then you don't.
Yeah, so well said, so beautiful. Because also, like what we say, is what we believe, but it's also what we
Yeah.
feel. And if
Mm.
we keep
Mm.
saying I'm such a loser, we're gonna
Yep.
feel like a loser, and we're gonna show up in the world as a loser, as a whatever the negative word is. And that's what I was thinking when you were sharing that, is like your podcast, Power of Positive. And it's when you said affirmations, and I think of the power of our words,
Mm. Hmm.
whether they're
Yeah, for sure.
positive. Yeah, the positive words are
Something
so
that
powerful in our life.
something that comes to mind when you're saying that is, like what we tell ourselves becomes our reality and
Mm-hmm.
such, is also like if we say, I'm tired, like, I work a lot with people, like I said, to try to help them accomplish their fitness goals. And so sometimes, a lot of times, people will say, like, well, when I get home from work, I'm just so tired and I just want to lay on the couch. And
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I get that. But what happens if you come home and you say, I'm not tired. I have energy. I can do this. Because what you tell yourself becomes your reality, becomes your truth. So if you say to yourself, I'm tired, I don't want to do this, I can even just saying that in my head, I
Uh-huh.
feel myself just sinking down, like,
Yeah.
weighing myself down. But if you tell yourself, and I have to preface, you have to believe this. You can't just
Mm-hmm.
you can't just do this, but you have to tell yourself, like, I have energy, I can do that. And you force yourself to get up and move. Suddenly you have more energy. So what you and honestly, you might not believe it until you experience it, but you tell yourself, you are, and you are.
And you feel so much better. Yeah, because there's times where, like, I know that I'm gonna feel better if I go walk, but I don't feel like going walk at the moment. Like, I'm
Mhm.
just like, no, I don't. But I say, well, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna push through that feeling anyway. And when I go
Mhm.
walk, I feel so much better, and I have so much more energy. And so, if
Yes.
anybody's
Yeah.
listening, I feel like that's a really good challenge, challenge yourself and
Mhm.
start small. Like, don't say, okay, well, I haven't been doing anything, especially with this quarantine, get out and walk, but
Mm.
it's like not, every day. No, start one day a
Yeah.
week if you haven't done anything, but at least start.
hmm
You know?
I think that definitely even relates to, for me, being an introvert and, struggling with depression at times, is like friends would ask me to go out and do things, and
Hmm.
I would instantly say to myself, oh, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's not going to be fun, and again, saying those things, I
Yeah.
just feel myself like going down, down, down. And I force myself to go out and have those human interactions. And I come home and I think, oh my gosh, I so needed that.
Yes.
So I think that's the way it is too, is like if you tell yourself it's not going to be fun, or oh, those whatever, you can completely determine how the experience goes based on what you're telling yourself beforehand or leading up to it. So I think your thoughts are so powerful,
Yeah.
either negative or positive, and you just
Yeah.
have to choose what you want the outcome to be.
Yeah. So true. So true. Uh, um, so I just was wondering about, like, I, I don't know. I had so many thoughts. I could talk to you forever here. I just love
Well,
getting
this
into
has
all
been
this.
so Yeah, this has been so fun, Michelle. I'm so, so glad you asked me to be on the show, and it's been a great conversation.
Yes.
And it's just been so fun.
I know. I'm so happy to have met you. I mean, I know that the circumstances in our world right now, nothing is the same and nothing will be the same. And, I
Mhm.
recently shared, I mean, we're in the new moon right now, and I feel like this is a new time. This is a new way of living. We are all trying to figure it out. And, one other thing I wanted to ask you, because maybe some people listening are wondering, if they've never journaled, because I'm a big journaler. Journaling has healed me so many times in my life, has brought healing. And so, do you have, when you said you do your gratitude and your morning routine, do you have a certain journal that you use for that?
Yeah. So it's funny that I would even give advice on journaling, because I feel like it's not my strong suit, because it's something I've really struggled with. Because personally, I feel like so much. Like journaling has to be a certain way. I feel like expectations with journaling. And I always felt that I didn't ever live up to those expectations. Like I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's honestly just been probably a year since I've really just made it my own. And so for me, what I call journaling is writing my affirmations, my gratitude. I have like maybe 5 goals that I write down that are either short term or long term, whatever, just 5 things that I want to achieve in my life and focus on. And then one action thing, just writing down one action that I'm going to take, that if nothing else happens that day, at least I've done this one thing that's going to help me move forward towards my goals, or at least achieving some of my goals. And then I honestly just use a nice spiral notebook. It's a
Mm-hmm.
hardcover, so it's just nice, with just lined paper, because that's what works best for me. And then I just do a brain dump on like a loose leaf paper of just getting out my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily like sentences, it's often just words, things that I want to remember for that day. I just feel like getting it all out of my brain is a big stress relief, because I feel like a lot of times our to-do list stresses us out because we don't have it down on paper. So it's not necessarily something that you want to do that day. It could be, remember to send flowers to grandma next week for her birthday. And if
Yeah.
I just get it out of my head, put it down on paper, I feel like I can release the thought, that it's not stressing me out and wearing me down. So that is therapeutic for me, to just get it out.
Okay.
And I know there's a lot of great prompting journals. I just have finally found what works for me. And right now, I should say, for right now, who knows, as I change and evolve and life changes, something else may work for me, but that's what's working for me right now.
I love it because it's simple. And I believe
Mhm.
that what trips people up is, like you said, you get a certain type of planner and it may have those same things in it, but you feel like, oh, what if I mess it up? I know I'm like that because I'm a type A perfectionist and all. I'm like, I don't want to write in it and I don't use it. But it's like, get a pretty tablet. You can get them at TJ Maxx once they open, but Amazon and grocery store, even get your children's notebook and just start. I love that. I always tell people about that when they feel anxious and overwhelmed. It's like, keep a notebook by your bed. Keep a notebook with you, or use your notes in your phone, but get it out and then it frees that space and you don't feel anxious and you don't have to keep trying to remember. So thank you for sharing that, because that's the best way, is like, do what's good for you and what works for you. And change over time, and as you grow and, expand that if you want. I love that. And I also love that you said one action step, because, you could do a to-do list and we put everything down and you look at it like, I'll never get all this done, and you just don't do any of it. Like I totally, that's what I do. And so it's like one to three maximum. And I know you had mentioned a book in your podcast about the atomic, no, you mentioned Brendan Burchard, but then you had I have the book too by James Clear.
Atomic Habits.
That one. Yeah. That's a good book.
I haven't actually read his book. I heard him speak one time and I really loved him. And I get his weekly emails, but I'm currently reading for the second time, High Performance Habits by Brendan Burchard. I love that. That's a part of my morning routine to at least read 10 minutes.
Okay.
And then, I think another author that I've talked about in my podcast is, Darren Daly, Darren Hardy is another author of books that I like. And then Brian Tracy. I don't remember exactly which of the additional authors that I talked about, but Brendan Burchard, I really like him because he's all about like living with intention. And that's something I really want to focus on.
Okay. So you do talk about all that in your podcast also, right? Yay.
Yep.
Yeah. So if anyone listening wants to get more, and I know who doesn't, like we all, want to strive to be better and have better habits. So thank you for sharing that. And so as you were talking about like doing, setting goals and action items, is that what you do with your clients that you work with?
Yeah, I'm really about like keep it simple and start small. Okay. And while I have, if I have plans for people, if you want to go all in, because really I think what's most important is that you identify like what you need, like what type of person are you? Some people are completely overwhelmed by the bigger picture and they need to just start small. Like let's just form one simple habit, work and build from there. And some people are best with super structure. I need to go all in. I want to make this whole change. So one size doesn't fit all, and what works for one doesn't work for someone else. So it's really about getting to know a person, where they're at, where they want to go, what their goals are, what's realistic for them, because, like I said, all in or one step at a time. So it's really just working with people individually, because oftentimes people will say, well, just give me your website and, I'll figure it out. And I think I'm always so hesitant because you can just get overwhelmed with everything. So really just helping people, like I said, figure out where they're at, where they want to go, and what steps to get there.
And so if someone wants to work with you like that, can they find more information through your website, through your social medias? How do they get in touch with you the best way?
Yeah, I really like to spend a lot of time on Instagram. So Instagram's the best way to connect. It's I am Nikki J. So IMNIKKIJ. And then I have a link in my bio with different things that you can find on how to connect with me. Always just send me a message. My email's there too.
Yeah, and you have your podcast listed in that as well, because that's how I met you, through Instagram, and I was able to listen to your, click on the link tree and get your podcast and everything that you are offering, your blog and all of that. So, so if anyone's listening and then you want to get in touch with Nikki, I will have her information in the show notes to make it easy for you. You just click on it and it'll take you right to her.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you. It has been such a pleasure meeting you, and I would love to stay in touch and have you back on the show and see where you are in a year or so. And just it's been an honor. Thank you for sharing your story. I know that It takes a lot of courage to share something that's so close into your heart. And I just know that it's going to help someone. And I really appreciate you sharing that and taking the time to be here with us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to share with people. And it definitely is healing for me to continue to share and connect with other people and hopefully give people hope that if you're going through the situation, no matter what happens, you are enough. And right where you are right now is where you're meant to be. And that might be hard to hear and understand, but it's the truth. So stay positive and stay healthy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Life is a Treasure podcast. I'm Michelle Durand, and I'd like to personally invite you to join us and continue the conversation in our free Facebook group, Life is a Treasure podcast. The link will be in the show notes at lifeisatreasure.com. You can also find my social media links on the website as well. Please reach out to me and introduce yourself. I'd love to hear where you're listening from and what your biggest takeaways have been. And as we begin to share our secrets, our stories, and our struggles, we find that others can have the courage to start sharing theirs. And this is how the healing process begins. So please help us spread the hope and the healing to others by subscribing, reviewing, and sharing this podcast. And make sure to tag me on Instagram at Michelle Marie with 2 E's, Durand, Durand, with hashtag Life is a Treasure podcast for a chance to get a shout out on the show. And also visit lifeisatreasure.com for all the resources and freebies mentioned. We believe that everyone is equal and worthy of healing and unconditional love. And we promise that if you invest your time and energy to do the inner work, you too can transform yourself and create a life that is a treasure, so you can live authentically, love unconditionally, and laugh wholeheartedly. And until next week, peace, love, and joy.